When Maggie returns home after 6 long years, the last person she expects to see is Hank, her ex-stepbrother, the man she once tried so hard to forget. But one unexpected reunion, one charged glance, and years of buried feelings erupt into a slow-burning desire neither of them can deny. What begins as unresolved tension quickly spirals into something far more dangerous and far more tempting. He's no longer family, but he might be everything she's ever wanted. Please don't forget to subscribe and comment. And one request, please always keep a smile on your face. The moment Margaret Maggie Daniels stepped back into her mother's old house in Vermont, she could feel the past pressing against her chest. Dust danced in the morning sunbeams slicing through the windows, the place quiet except for the soft creak of the wooden floors under her boots. She hadn't been home in over 6 years, not since college, not since the accident, and definitely not since her mother's remarriage ended in silence and secrets. Maggie wasn't expecting anyone. She thought she'd have the weekend to herself to pack up her mother's things before selling the property. So when she heard the distinct sound of a truck rolling into the driveway, her body tensed. She peered through the blinds and froze. No, it couldn't be. Henry Hank Callahan stepped out of the truck, tall and broad, with shoulders that looked even wider than she remembered. His flannel shirt clung to his chest like it was made for him. His jaw was dusted with stubble, and his eyes, those deep blue eyes, still held that unshakable calm. He was older now. A man, not the wild boy she remembered. Her throat tightened. "Hank," she said as she stepped onto the porch. He looked up at her, surprised. But then a crooked grin spread across his lips, the same one that used to make her stomach do a flip when she was 19 and confused about everything. "Well, damn," he said, walking up the steps, his boots heavy. "Didn't think I'd see you again." Maggie crossed her arms, trying to act casual. "I didn't think you'd come." He shrugged. "Mom asked me to check on the house. Didn't know you were here." Their parents had been married for 5 years before splitting, but it was long enough for the lines between family and something else to blur. And long enough for Maggie to know that what she felt for Hank had always been wrong. Or at least forbidden. He stepped closer. "You look different." "So do you," she replied, then instantly regretted how breathless her voice sounded. They stood there, the summer air thick between them. "I'm here to clear things out," she said quickly, stepping back inside. "You don't have to stay." But he did. Hank followed her in like gravity itself was pulling him forward. Something about the way he moved, the way his presence filled the space, made her hyper-aware of every breath she took. They spent the day sorting boxes. Old family photos. Childhood books. Memories that neither of them knew how to talk about. Hank held up a picture of them at the lake, her in a sundress, him in board shorts, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. "Remember this?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. She remembered the day vividly. The water had been freezing. He had splashed her and she had fallen, and when he'd helped her up, her hand had lingered in his. Too long. "I always wondered what would have happened if..." His voice trailed off. "If what?" she asked. He looked directly at her, his expression serious. "If I hadn't left." That silence again. Uncomfortable. Electric. "You were my stepbrother," she said softly, brushing dust off the edge of the box. "It could never happen." His voice dropped lower, rough with something unspoken. "You think that stopped me?" She looked up at him, heart racing. "Back then," he continued, "I didn't know what to do with what I felt. I told myself it was just some stupid crush, that I was protecting you by leaving." "And now?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Hank took a step closer. "Now I'm not your stepbrother anymore." The words hung in the air like a secret finally told. She should have said something. Should have walked away. But instead, she stood frozen as he reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her skin tingled under his touch. She felt that pull again, stronger than ever. "Tell me you don't feel it," he murmured. Maggie didn't respond. Her breath caught in her throat as he leaned in, their lips inches apart. But just before they touched, she turned away. "This is crazy," she whispered. "We haven't seen each other in years." "That doesn't change what's always been there," Hank replied. That night, the storm rolled in suddenly. Rain pounded the roof, lightning flashed across the sky, and the power went out just as Maggie was trying to sleep. The wind howled like it was calling out every secret they both had buried. She crept downstairs in a hoodie and shorts, flashlight in hand. Hank was already in the living room, shirtless, trying to fix the fuse box with nothing but the glow of his phone. She paused at the bottom step, her eyes drinking him in without permission. He looked over his shoulder. Their eyes met, and something cracked. "You okay?" he asked. "No," she admitted. He stood. The flashlight fell between them, casting long shadows. "Maggie, I can't stop thinking about you," she said, voice trembling. "But I don't know what to do with it." He stepped closer again. "Then let me show you." This time, when he reached for her, she didn't pull away. Their lips met in a kiss that was slow at first, testing boundaries that had already blurred long ago. But it deepened quickly, years of tension unraveling in a single breath. His hands found her waist, hers tangled in his hair. It was heat and history, the kind that made her knees weak. They didn't go further, at least not yet. The kiss was enough to leave them both gasping, the weight of what they'd crossed heavy but strangely freeing. The next morning was quiet. They sat on the porch with coffee, watching the fog roll across the hills. "I'm not sorry," Hank said, breaking the silence. Maggie looked at him, emotions swirling. "Me neither." "But what now?" she asked. "We take it slow. We don't have to explain it to anyone," he said. "We just see where it goes." She leaned into his shoulder, and for the first time in years, she felt peace. Maybe love didn't always make sense. Maybe it was messy and confusing and, yes, forbidden. But it was also real. Maggie stayed an extra week. They spent their days sorting boxes and their nights talking under the stars. The more time they spent together, the more natural it felt. Like the years apart had been preparing them for this. And when it was finally time for her to leave, she turned to him and asked, "What if I don't go back right away?" Hank smiled, pulling her close. "Then stay. Sometimes love waits in the quiet. Sometimes it hides in the spaces between what's right and what's wanted. And sometimes, against all odds, it finds you when you're finally ready to face it."